Hi there, everybody. This is Tracy. Have you ever experienced the feeling of like overwhelming fear? Or maybe that you're going crazy or losing control? Maybe you're feeling like this surge of doom and gloom or anxiety, fear that you can't explain. You might have trembling and sweating and all kinds of things that go along with anxiety. Anxiety that stops you from being able to sleep, or it can make you completely weak and tired and not want to get out of bed. Anxiety is a tricky little fellow, and my guest today, Gina Ryan, is the anxiety coach, and she's got a podcast that she's going to share a wonderful free gift, and we are going to learn all we need to know about anxiety and learn that we do not have to turn to drugs like our doctors say, that we have the power to change and turn that anxiety attack around. Let's get started. Welcome, Gina. Thank you so much for joining me from Hawaii.
Tracy, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm really always looking forward to spending time with you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I met you probably a month ago. I reached out to you, and that was because you have a podcast called the Anxiety Coach Podcast, right?
Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Yes.
Okay. And so I know that the people that watch my channel who are victims of narcissistic abuse often struggle with anxiety, and I knew there would be no one better than to explain this to us than you. So let's start right off by asking, what is anxiety? And let's start with that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I know when I finally learned what it was way back in the day, I was like, oh, so that's what I'm feeling. That's what's happening to me. Because often we don't know. We think we're going crazy. You know, there's a million different thoughts that go through our head. But anxiety is it's a buildup of stress that we have no relief valves for. And it has built up to the point where our nervous system is now in a place of oversensitization. I was going to say overload, but what it really is technically is it's an oversensitization. There's a little part of our brain called the amygdala. I call it the lizard brain, and it's our first brain, and it's meant for us to survive. And anxiety is us living out of that. So everything is urgent. I'm sure your people who have it know what I'm saying now. Everything feels very important. It must get done now because we're living out of survival. And that's what anxiety is, oversensitization and us living out of that anxious, ancient brain.
So that's in the fight, flight, or freeze concept. Which part is that, or is it all of it?
It's all of it. Fight, flight, or freeze is where we go normally. We should go there when there's cars coming around the corner. I always tell this story. I hope you got your cup of coffee. Hopefully it's decaf, and you jump back up on the curb. You should be in fight, flight. You wouldn't go to freeze on that because it's too
dangerous.
Your body, but that's what your mind and body know what to do. We always think we have to think all these things through and we have to figure everything out. But we do. We have great reactions that serve us well. But then naturally, so everything, your stress hormones come out, your adrenaline, your cortisol, natural, that they come out. They helped you to jump out of the way, make a split decision. But then they come back down again once you're in safety and you've crossed over to the other side of the street and you go, wow, that was a close call. And then you come back down again. And that's what animals do. You see them, they fight, and they get safe, and then they relax again. They start nibbling on the grass again. But we don't do that. We go into, oh my God, what if that car had hit me? Oh my God, I could have, this would have happened, that would have happened, and so forth and so on. And then what it would have been is that we continually feed the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. We never come back down again. And that's anxiety.
Yeah. And like, how would they know some of the symptoms? So that's the circumstance that it could, occur in, but how does it feel?
So what happens then is you're in safety, you're home, you're doing crossword puzzle, watching TV, whatever you're doing, but you've got, all of a sudden you got like a pounding heart, or you're sweating, or you're thinking thoughts. A lot of people don't have physical sensations, but they have intrusive, ruminating thoughts that just go round and round on the hamster wheel. You can have digestive issues are very common, because what happens is when we're in fight or flight, the first thing to shut down is our digestion. If we're trying to run from an animal for safety, as we would have historically, we don't need to be digesting our lunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just need to be able to get to safety. Don't need to be reproducing, or all of that starts to shut down. So the longer we're in those kind of stressful situations, which are usually generating from our mind or from a relationship issue or an environmental issue, we begin to lose our digestive normalcy. We start having stomach aches. A lot of people in anxiety, especially kids often talk about, oh, my belly hurts. That will be the first thing that they can actually discuss with a parent, right? So any of those kind of things, people have aches and pains. It'll be amazing to find out what's going on. And symptoms can jump around. So you kind of feel like you fixed one thing and then there's something else pops up. And it's really...
Isn't that old age?
Well, that's what your doctor will tell you, right? It's old age. No, actually, it doesn't have to be. It can be that your stress hormones are causing you to have, and like I said, the common ones are, it can be dizziness. There's a lump in the throat that people get. Sometimes it can get so bad they cannot speak. I have a client who runs up into that in meetings. All of a sudden, he can't speak, right?
Oh.
Yeah. And so it's his anxiety. There's nothing wrong with his throat. He's had it all checked out. He gets stressed. His throat feels like it's constricting. He feeds the stress and makes it worse. The heart's pounding, sweating.
Mm-hmm. So is there a difference between situational kind of anxiety? So we're about to cross the street and the car almost hits us, that anxiety, and even, in a breakup of a relationship, that sort of anxiety, which is a little bit situational, could be longer, or an actual disorder, because I believe that my sister has some sort of anxiety disorder. So can you explain this?
Yeah, and a lot of that, of course, this is all my opinion from my 20 years of working with this, with other people, that I see it as a disorder. It becomes a mental disorder when it has gone on to a point where you are losing your own ability to deal with it, to do the lifestyle changes, to be able to see clearly that, oh, this is something I'm participating in. Then I believe that it becomes more of a mental disorder, if you will. But way before that, we can be stuck in the anxiety cycle, and be exhibiting all of the same symptoms, sensations, and challenges. But I don't really look at it as a mental disorder then, because people are still participating. They're still seeing, oh, I'm not broken, my situation is broken. Mm-hmm. But it can also be that you've done that for so long and not participated, and kind of went into there's a victim mode we can go into. And then I look at it more as a disorder. Mm-hmm. Now, if you talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist, they will talk to you about it differently. Of course, immediately, if you felt like this for 2 days, they think that you have a disorder. But I see it a little differently. I see it more on a spectrum, right? There's a continuum that we can move up and down in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you seem to be stuck in it, and you're more in that victim mode, this is happening to me. There's other issues then that need to also be worked out.
And I know that when I was going through the discovery of my abuse, I had what the doctor called panic attacks, and they didn't feel really good.
Oh my God, no. Yeah.
So can you tell us about those a little bit?
Yeah, so that would be even heightened beyond anxiety. So anxiety, most people, is a level that they can deal with. And some people, it's general anxiety. They just feel it all day, every day. Other people just ride the roller coaster. Panic attack it's an anxiety feeling on steroids. You are in, and once it's started, you really can't stop it. It's not something that you probably must remember this, that you kind of have to write it out. And if you don't know what it is, it can be extremely frightening. Those are the times that people, and tell me if this happened to you, Tracy, that people show up at the ER. They think they're having a heart attack because it feels just like that. That is your body, your mind is sending messages to your body that you are in a horrible, dangerous situation. Now, the interesting thing is, and tell me pull me in if I veer off too far here.
Go ahead.
Because you're talking about people, and yourself included, that you're in a dangerous situation, perhaps. It's very dangerous to your mind and body. How dangerous it is to outward people or other people in the family or something, it probably doesn't matter. Your mind and body are registering this situation as dangerous, and it's reacting in that way. And when it keeps building and building, it can be like the smallest little thing, the little straw that breaks the camel's back, and you're in a panic situation. You may not have even seen it coming. It happens to people quite often. They say it was just there, and it came out of the blue. But studies have shown the reaction that our body is making when we think people were thinking it was coming out of the blue. They were given a panic button. So when they felt the panic attack coming on, that they would push that. But they were rigged up. So they were reading their oxygen, their heart rate, respiration, and they found that their body was reacting long before they knew to push the panic button. So again, the wisdom of our body, it knows what we're not even willing to think or to share with our conscious mind. Yeah.
It's kind of like you're on Hawaii. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I know you're safe from the volcano, but that volcano has been bubbling for a really long time before it jumped out.
That's right. And all those little rumblings, all those little earthquakes that were going on. Yeah.
And that's exactly how that can happen.
Absolutely. But no one pays attention until it's spewing lava. Right?
Exactly. Which I can picture my sister's face doing right now. So when someone is in a state of anxiety, I know that the traditional medicine doctors, therapists, and psychologists or psychiatrists that give drugs, they give you a drug. Here you have anxiety, take a Xanax. Here you have, depression, take this. So I didn't find those things to be helpful. Certainly after the first two, the first one, you're like, okay, I'm calmer, but then it happened, you back in anxiety, and there's not a real good way to manage it. So how does someone manage this sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, there is a way out, and that is by calming the nervous system back down again. Because what we've done is it's become so overstimulated and sensitized that every little thing sets it off. And we need to get back to that place, which is our normal place of homeostasis, where we flare up when we need to, but we go right back down. And some of the ways that we calm our nervous system, it's different for everyone, but such as if you're in a situation that isn't good for you, that's your mind and body telling you you're in a situation that isn't good for you. And we don't often think it's the right time to deal with something. I know this is life, right? This is a good time. So if you need to put your environmental changes, relationship changes, whatever, on the back burner for a little bit, you can work totally on yourself. And you can deal by learning how to, the very first thing I have people do, and I call it the cornerstone, is meditation. And when you first are in this over anxious state, you think, meditation? I can't do that. If I could do that, I'd be okay. So I have, like on my website, I have a free 10-minute body scan, which is where you just lay down and you go through your body. All you're doing is bringing your attention to each little place in your body. And when we can train our brain to go where we tell it to go versus the hamster wheel where it wants to go, off to the dangerous, scary places, we begin to have not total control, but we get to be able to steer the ship a little bit better. We still have to deal with the winds and the waves, but we have a way of being able to manipulate this. So meditation is the first one. So I have people start with 10 minutes. Most people can't do that. And they'll say, I can't do 10 minutes. I can't do 10 minutes. My camera is saying it will not turn back on.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Anxiety.
Yeah, well, not really. Anyway, I'll just keep going and we'll deal with it. You tell me what to do.
Okay, keep talking. Keep talking. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. It may just be a blip in my the way things are here in Hawaii. So, so when people say they can't do the meditation for 10 minutes, I tell them that's fine. So start with 5 minutes. Just do the body scan for the first 5 minutes, or just sit and put your favorite music on. Now, we grow through meditation. We don't do these same things over and forever, but put your favorite music on that's quiet and soothing. And for 5 minutes, just sit with watching your breath. You watch yourself take a breath in, and you watch yourself take a breath out. 5 minutes. And if you can't do that, and that's probably going to be a lot of people watching this, they're like, I can't do that. Or I tried it. I went crazy. I couldn't sit still. I had to jump up. 1 minute. So here's the point with the 1 minute is 1 minute every day. Everybody can do 1 minute, whether that's 1 minute before you get out of your car in the garage, 1 minute before you go to bed at night. Find somewhere where you can do the 1 minute every single day. And you begin to build this place where your mind and body remember to go. And it's like finding your way home again. And I mean that in our heart, in our deepest being, we remember to go home. Maybe we're only there for a minute, but if we do it every day, that's the piece. Not 7 minutes one day, but 1 minute, 7 days a week. Then you can start to expand it. And it can be a challenge each time you expand it, but you begin to get there. And this really makes a big difference on calming the nervous system. It brings it back down again. Mm-hmm.
I know that, like, before I learned how to meditate, and I learned through guided meditations, much like the one that we'll put a link down below for people to find yours. Thank you so much for offering that to my audience. Mm-hmm. I always pictured the meditation person, in the position.
Oh yeah, something fancy.
Exactly. So can we just lie on our couch or in our bed and do the body scan there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the place to start. Just get comfortable.
Exactly.
And wherever that, what I always say with my clients, I meet them where they're at. Some people have been meditating forever, and we got to really get creative on how to switch things and go a little deeper for them. But if you have never done it, that's a perfect way, Tracy. Guided meditations, whether it's our body scan or just finding them on YouTube or Insight Meditation Timer, wherever you can go. A lot of free stuff out there for guided meditation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the benefits of meditation, and isn't it sort of called mindfulness as well?
Yes. Well, mindfulness is a type of meditation.
Okay.
There's concentration meditation, but the mindfulness is the place where we begin to see actually what we're doing, and we pull ourselves right back into the moment. And this is what's super helpful for stressed people, is being clear and living in the moment versus what anxious, stressed out people do is we live in the future. Mm-hmm. We're worried about everything, what's going to happen in 5 minutes, what's going to happen in 5 weeks and 5 years. Like, that's where we spend most of our time. And it's not pleasant thinking about it. It's pretty stressful thinking about it. So mindfulness and mindfulness meditation, that's why we bring our attention to our breath or place in our body is, oh, well, I'm just right here, right now. I am okay. I'm okay right now. And to actually celebrate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an incredibly powerful message for survivors that are, worrying about tomorrow, worrying about how will I pay my bills? How will I parent my child alone? Where will I be? Who will love me next? There's so much anxiety, but that's all about tomorrow. And we're worrying about things that we really can't control. So to kind of center yourself and focus in, it just gives you a little breather so that you stop that hamster wheel, as you called it.
Yeah, because what I tell people is the more that you can calm your nervous system now, the more you will remember that you have handled things in the past, and you will handle each one of these things when they come up. You really can. You can't handle it now because it's your imagination and the possibilities are endless.
Right.
But when it's right there in front of you, you will handle it. And I know that from all of the people I worked with in my own life. We can't do it ahead of time, but that's what we want to do, right? Because we want to figure it out right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what other secrets do you have for people that are going to try the meditation, but maybe they're at work and they're having this panic attack building up? Are there any other secrets that you have that can kind of talk them down off that cliff?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does hit us in these situations. A lot of my clients talk about being in a meeting, because often when you feel like you can't get out of something, you can't get out of the meeting, or somewhere on the highway, you can't get off the highway. That's when we start to feel like we don't have control. So we start to have those panicky feelings. And so what we can do are things that I call like grounding, which is just bringing your energy back into you again. And simple things, especially if you're at work and you can't really get up and go do something, you can feel the texture of your clothing, your sweater that you're wearing, to actually use your five senses, touch something and notice it. Maybe you keep a worry stone on your desk and you feel that. You can also use your sense of smell by using aromatherapy, and just very simple, basic oils such as lavender is very calming. And to just do basic stuff. Yes, have a little lavender. Use your sense of sight. Maybe you work at the computer and you can, for a minute, pull up a picture of a beautiful scene that you can just remember. Maybe it's a picture of your child. Maybe it's a picture of your pet. Those animals will save us often. And just so you use your sense of sight. And another one is use your sense of hearing to be able to, if solid people at work use some music that they can listen to, they can wear earbuds at work, or if you can't, use music inside of you. Let that favorite tune go through your mind. Not the one that's going to drive you crazy. You put that one on the back burner and let that beautiful piece of music that you always loved just run through your own mind. And how do we do that? Because often we do it through repetition. We have to have listened to that piece of music and put it in us so that we can remember it as a beautiful, calming thing for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So work is a tough spot, but you can do those things. If you can get up from your desk, go out and take a walk. Being able to move around actually lets go of some of the pent up stress hormones and the energy. It helps us to expel it. So if you can get up and go for a walk around the building or walk outside, that can really help also.
Yeah, those are really very helpful things to learn and to know. And I know I was just recently at a domestic violence conference, and there was a really sort of play therapy presentation. And they just said to kind of alternate tapping your leg. Just, again, nobody sees it. You're just going back and forth, and that's sort of switching your brain back and forth to just kind of change the hemispheres, and it can bring you down out of that potential panic attack.
Absolutely. Another one is doing anything that you cross your midline, right? So if you have a ball and you throw it from one hand to the other hand, but you make sure your left hand crosses your midline toward your right hand, because that switches those hemispheres also. That will, so anything. That's why walking works so well, because usually with the swinging of our arms, we're crossing that midline. And that really helps. Yeah. So good one, Tracy. I like the tapping of the legs.
Yeah, that was helpful. And sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. Just things, but we can just go back and forth in our brain, and it just takes us off of that. And again, it's like focusing on our breath, focusing on our body parts as we're doing that meditation and feeling the breath come into our belly. It's just taking us off of that whimsical thought of fear and anxiety and going, all right, you're gone for right now. But now I'm talking about breathing, and I can feel my feet and I can feel my knees.
Yeah.
And that's what all of these things do. And they're so easy to do.
And we always have them available. There's no excuses, because we can feel our feet in our shoes.
Yeah.
If you don't have feet, you can feel your hands on your knees. You can find something. You know what I'm saying? Because often when we're that stressed out, we come up with it. I can't do it. Or we're exhausted, Tracy, from trying everything, and we're tired, and we just say we can't. But if you can just muster enough to try some of these few basic small things, you'll begin to get the energy to keep going.
Right. Yeah. And it sure beats taking a drug that's going to drug you for the entire day and sort of numb those feelings, numb out the fact that there's that sort of stuff. You're still not dealing with it. You're just on drugs.
You're not. Absolutely. Because what happens is when people go off them, then they have to deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's either pay me now or pay me later. And actually coming off things such as Xanax, any of those benzodiazepines it's a long journey, and it's very stressful.
Yeah.
And if you're not on them, don't start.
Mm-hmm.
You're not broken. It's your situation. When we have too much stress, that's a wake-up call. We should be looking at that as, this is something that's trying to help me. It's our mind and body trying to get us to safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe we got stuck in the on position, but really we want to pay attention to what is it in my life that I can change or fix or remove or add, because there isn't anything wrong with your brain chemistry if you're stressed.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, baby, you're okay. We're all okay.
So, tell the audience what an anxiety coach does.
Yeah. So, you wouldn't have thought of these things back in the day when I had anxiety. There was no such thing. And I kind of stumbled along trying this, that, and the other thing until I found what worked. But coaching, unlike therapy, gets people we work, as a coach, I work with you where you're at right now. Now, obviously your history and your life brought you to this point, but you can actually make lifestyle changes so that you feel better now as you go forward. I think working on the past, which many of my clients desire to do with either a therapist, psychotherapist, or psychiatrist, I call that a luxury, because that is a long, drawn-out process of pulling out history. And it's interesting, but it's not necessary for anxiety. You can heal and clear your anxiety without ever going into your past. This is about going forward. And going forward without worrying, because usually the anxious person is spending all their time in the future, and that hasn't even happened yet. So we just pull back and we come back into the present moment, And that's what anxiety coaching is. It's different with each person because each person comes with their own recipe of issues and sensations and triggers. And we work with those individually. It's very, as you probably know from working with your people, that it can, it comes in all kinds of flavors and colors, sizes. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really does. And I can only imagine that, when you first start working with someone, it's a whole new thing every time because everyone's got their stuff.
Yes, it is new each time, You start to see patterns, obviously, and, we have basic things what we end up coming back all down to, though, is the root. And the root is of our remembering of our own ability to handle life, that we can do it. And that once we can calm our nervous system down, we can think again, because when we're stressed and in anxiety and panic, we are not using our brain. Our executive functioning, that new whole part of our brain is now deferred to that ancient lizard brain. That's where all the energy's going. And so we're not making good decisions. We're not able to remember things like people talk about, like, oh my God, I can't remember anything anymore. And all of that is because our brain is not functioning in the way that it normally does, because all of our energy is going to survival.
That makes perfect sense because so many of the viewers go through PTSD or see PTSD, and just having like the inability to think and walk into a room, which I have now, but it's just being old. But you walk into a room and you're like, "What was I doing?" And then you go back, and then you're sort of like angry at yourself, like, "How come I can't remember things? What's wrong with me?" And that puts you back into the spiral of going downhill.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's one thing to not remember, and it's another thing to beat ourselves up for not remembering. It keeps us in the spiral. It just takes us. That's why we stay in that overstressed, feeling. All those hormones raging, because something happens, and then we blame ourselves. What's wrong with me? How come I can't remember anything? Oh no, this is worse than I thought. And that just keeps us going. So we want to remind people to talk to themselves as if they were talking to a 4 or 5-year-old who was having a tough time, and talk to ourselves as if we were that little 4 or 5-year-old. Maybe not even your own 4 or 5-year-old, because some people still would not be kind there, but to your own your neighbor that's 4 or 5 and comes with this problem and they can't remember anything, and be as kind to yourself as you would to that little child. But we're not. We beat ourselves up. We expect we should know everything, have everything perfect and in control, and we're just not. That isn't how life works.
No, that's a perfect way to put it. I find myself talking to myself more and more every day.
I love it.
And
Me too.
It's like, oh, you're back. Oh, hello.
Yeah. It's a good conversation, Tracy.
Yeah, it does help because you can just go down a rabbit hole so fast, and worrying, it starts off in this little fester, like you've got a splinter, and then you didn't take care of the splinter, and the worry just gets bigger, and now you can't use your finger, and before you know it, your arm is being chopped off if you don't pay attention to it. But when you see it and you tell yourself it's okay, it's a splinter, we'll get it, then the panic and the fear that you've already catastrophized that your arm's going to fall off.
Right. Yeah. And that becomes a habit. That kind of thinking becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even need to consciously go there. Everything goes from 0 to 60 down I call it the wormhole, and then you're just gone. Right. And you didn't even pay any attention. You just went there.
Yeah.
So we have to catch that, and that can all change. We don't need to live like that. Yeah.
No. And I am so grateful that you have shared this information. And I want to tell everyone about your podcast because They could be out taking that walk at lunch at work and be listening to you give them helpful advice. So let's talk about your podcast so people can find you.
Okay, so it's the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, and it's on iTunes and Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, everything, Spotify. It's everywhere. Or you can just go to our website if you don't have an app that you like to use and you like to listen online. You can go to anxietycoachespodcast.com, and there's a page with the podcasts, and you can listen to them. I think we just put up episode 418 today. So there's 418 episodes to peruse through. Use the search bar. If you've got an issue, you can put it in the search bar, see what pops up, and listen to those. I get email every day. They're only about 20 minutes long. I have occasional guests, but usually it's just me talking about the issues that my clients and my group members are going through.
Wow. Now, group members, did you say that you have a Facebook group too or something?
I don't have a free Facebook group anymore. We had one that was archived back in December. It got very large. It was over 5,000 members, and it became it's a lot of people to manage. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for the safety and welfare of the people in the group, I did close it, and I direct everybody to the podcast now.
Okay.
So just go to the podcast, listen in, and send your questions in. You have a question, you can send it to anxietycoachespodcast@gmail.com. We might even answer it on the air. So send us your questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. You're such a joy, and I want you to know how much the work that you are doing is appreciated. This isn't talked about enough, and I know from my own client load that this is a very important area to be talking about. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you learned some helpful tips on how to deal with anxiety. Please follow Gina's link below and download her meditation. Guided meditations can be such a big help. And when you're really new at meditations, having one that's guided that can just help you learn to relax is going to be the key to dealing with your anxiety. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe and hit the little bell, and you'll be alerted when all my new videos come in. Again, thanks for watching. Visit my website, narcissistabusesupport.com, for all of the resources that you might need wherever you are in this recovery. Thanks.